On today's show, 3 questions. Number 1, what's the cherry on top for inflation? Number 2, do spending actions speak louder than words? And number 3, are we living in a sitcom? Welcome to Dentist Money's 2 cents, where we help dentists navigate all the noise. I'm Matt.
I'm Will.
And I'm Rabih.
Yeah, you are. Rabih, what are we going to start calling 2 cents?
A pair of pennies, courtesy of Landon, because
Shout out, Landon. I like that. Welcome to a pair of pennies. A couple of pennies in the pocket. Okay, let's jump in. Rabih, what is the cherry on top for inflation? And how did you come up with this question? Maybe give us the origins of this question.
Yeah, so Matt puts undue pressure on me to try to come up with a really good title question every single week. I'm just kidding. No, but actually, I was doing the research and I wanted to find a title while I was having cake. And I was like, yep, cherry on top sounds just right.
Was that this was today? You were eating some cake?
This morning, yeah.
Some post
leftover cake. And I'm
little
like,
post-breakfast dessert?
Yeah, why not?
I like this. Okay.
That's what being adult's all about, is you can eat cake at 10 a.m. if you want to.
Honestly, I actually had a friend tell me this a while back, and it's always stuck with me when he was eating, I don't even know what it was, but kind of a similar thing, like a kind of out of, the norm type meal. And he goes, you know what? The best part of being an adult is I can do whatever I want. And I was like, he's got little kids. And I was like, you know what? That's a good point. If you want to have cake after breakfast, freaking do it, Rabih.
You can do that, yeah.
Why not? It was great.
As Studi
would
say,
high on sugar for the last 3 hours? Yes.
Well, you just sucked down a Capri Sun as well. But as Studi would say, go off, King.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay. Rabih, what is the cherry on top for inflation?
So actually, we're coming up to the most exciting week in all of December for the markets, which is next week. On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve is finally going to meet. And most probably, they're going to be cutting interest rates 25 basis points. This is what the markets are predicting. And the reason the market is predicting that is because we finally got inflation numbers for November earlier this week. The CPI came in. And the reason I thought the CPI this month is of a particular importance is because 12 months from today, the Federal Reserve decided to stop increasing interest rates. And when they decided in October 2023 to stop increasing interest rates, in a sense, they indicated that the fight against inflation is over and we're just going to let the lagging effect of interest rates kill what remains of inflation. I was like, great, now I have 12 months of data since they decided to stop raising interest rates. Let's look at them and let's see where they succeeded and where they didn't. So I got these numbers out for you guys. And what's the document? Okay. Here we go. Sorry.
Pregnant pause.
This out. I'm like, document. Where's the document? Okay. Okay. So I got the document for the last 12 months of inflation from November 2020 to November 2024. We're looking at CPI, but this is the one that's kind of headline. I know it's not the preferred one for the Fed, but everyone looks at it. Historically, from 2016 until 2020, before stuff got out of control, that played around 1.7% to 2.2% on an annualized basis. So this is the range that we're looking at. So far, between the last November and this November, it is at 2.7%. So this is the same number that in July 2023 got to 9.1%. So it has seen a lot of fluctuations, but it is now down to 2.7%. And it's broken down, into different categories. It's food at home, away from home, energy, gasoline, electricity, natural gas, all items less food and energy, which is what we call core CPI. And then you've got commodities, apparel, new vehicles, medical services less energy, shelter, and education. So those are the different categories that go in, and I rank them. And I'm just going to give you the higher end and the lower end. So in terms of the ones that moved the least in the last 12 months, well, gasoline and energy, those rank 16 and 17. Energy is down 3.2% over the last year, and gasoline of all types is down 8.1% over the last year. But those are from the fluctuating part. That's why we sometimes look at core. In ranking at number 15, which is part of the ones that do not fluctuate as much, is new vehicles. And new vehicles are down 0.7% over those 12 months. So there are certain portions of the economy that have kind of lost their price level dropped down due to increased supply or lack of demand over the last 12 months. But let's look at what has been up. And this is in my mind, what is the cherry on top? What remains that is still high that we need to bring down? So inflation is at the 2% level, even on a CPI level. We're not at the 2.7. So I'm going to give you the top three. Ranking at the third position, medical care services. It's up 3.7% since last year. So that is still inflationary in a sense. It should be around the 2 if we want to average everything up. At the second place, we've got services less energy at 4.6%. So that's still an increase. This is not even including the tips that we're forced to pay for services less energy, right? So
don't even get me started on the tip culture, Rabih.
No. So that's 4.6. And at number 1, we've got shelter at 4.7%. So the elephant in the room is shelter. That is a big portion of the CPI. It's around 25% of it. And that is what's keeping the print at 2.7% rather than going down to 2 and fluctuating between the 1.7, 2.2, which we had pre-COVID.
Rabih, what do they count as shelter? Are they saying home, like for purchases and rental?
Yes.
Both?
So this is the grouping of the category, but you
Just
can
housing.
expand it. It's housing. You look at it in terms of a mortgage payment. You look at it at owner's equivalent rent, and you look at it. You look at them for like different periods of stays, like long-term stays, short-term stays. So they have that breakdown, but they're all similar. Really, they're all similar, and it's just shelter that we have to look at in terms of their increase, because renters are gonna just match what the house prices are doing to keep the balance between the renting market and buying market as close as possible. In some pockets in this country, there's going to be dispersion due to different business forces, but overall, because we're looking at averages over here, it is what we are saying. It's a 4.7 increase, even after the Federal Reserve decided that the fight against inflation is over, and they decided to pause interest rates, which is the elephant in the room. And the only way we get out of it is if we solve the housing situation. So I did some little bit more research, and I found this good article from September. It's like 2 months old, from Goldman Sachs, but it kind of hits on the main factors that are preventing the housing market from reaching a solution. So the first one we can look at is housing affordability. Housing affordability is remaining at records low, which how they describe the housing market right now, they're calling it as stagnant. So we had a run up in housing demand, especially right after COVID, with all the financial easing that happened in the economy. There was a demand that skyrocketed, added to a chronic undersupply in the market since 2008, where housing inventory was not adept to contain that demand, which created upward pressure on housing prices. And because of that, houses have become unaffordable to many people. And this is the fact that they are still unaffordable makes the market stagnant. Like the volume of housings that is being flipped, and what I mean by flipped over, aka the number of transactions, isn't as high as we see, simply because there aren't a lot of houses being built. Supply hasn't been keeping up. And at the same time, they are unaffordable. So even if the demand is still there, the number of transactions that are actually being cleared at the end of the day is lower. And this is a sign of an inefficient market. So just to give you some context, they created that index, and at a level of 100, it means it's decent affordability. It's a fair value. In 2006, 2008, that was the previous low on how unaffordable they are. And it was around 80. This is the level that it covered at. And then in 2012, the complete shift and opposite shift happened, and houses became very affordable in 2012. And that indicator that they've created jumped all the way up to 150. But now, looking at 2023, 2024, this indicator is at the most unaffordable level it has ever been, and it is hovering around 70. So according to this graph by Goldman, back in 2008, houses were at a level of 80 of unaffordability, and the lower the worse. Now we're at a level of 70. So houses now are more unaffordable than they were in 08. So that was the first thing that they looked at. The second thing that they looked at is like they said that nominal personal income is continuing to grow. So disposable income has been growing, but it's not growing too much higher than the 4.7% that we're looking at. So the way you get out of the stagnant housing market that we are in is if suddenly people have more disposable income, their income has been growing, affordability issue goes out of the way, and you can, start affording the houses. But given that shelter is growing at 4.7%, and nominal income, while it's been growing not too much higher than the 4.7, the unaffordability problem is going to stay there, and it'll only ease out on a decade. Like their projections, like the next 5 years, no change. Probably in the next decade, we would start seeing a housing market that is back in balance. And
Is that because of the supply issue and you can't fix that overnight?
So yeah, there's one supply. How does a house become affordable? You either have more money to buy it, or there is supply in the market that house prices are lower. And both of these are not right now heading in a trajectory. Like to create more housing, this is actually not just a business factor, but also a legal factor with zoning and what an administration decides to ease in such a sense. And in terms of whether you're able to afford more houses, well, yes, we are getting richer, but shelter in specific, vis-a-vis all the other sectors in the economy, is still growing at 4.7%. So the housing affordability issue is there, and according to their projections, it's going to take a while for them to go back to being affordable. And the last thing that they brought up, which I found interesting, is that mortgage applications did not really respond to the increase in mortgage rates. So the Federal Reserve increased interest rates, right? And we started seeing rates on mortgages in the 7-8%, etc. You would expect mortgage applications to drop significantly. They did drop, like the economics work, but they did not drop in the same magnitude that we would expect them to drop. So the demand is still there, and this is probably a residual of having a very strong economic growth over the last 10 years. Households are not as leveraged as we think. People still have ammunition and buying power it's in the American culture to want to buy a house. So that is one of the last things that will go out of people's desires. So mortgage applications, while they did get affected, not as you would expect, and the fact that mortgage rates were higher didn't really leave us a big of a mark as we wanted.
I don't have the data on this, but I would imagine it seems intuitive, I think, that mortgage applications didn't drop as much as we expected, but who it did hurt was the first-time home buyer.
Oh yeah.
I would imagine like the people who didn't get hurt were the people who were already owning real estate, that although transactions are down, they could just, even though rates are up, they still could take the equity. Their equity was so much higher in the homes that they could take that and go buy another home. But the first-time home buyer, I think it's just created like a larger gap and a much, much longer runway for a first-time home buyer to be able to actually afford a home. That, I think, it's been the biggest group that's been hindered by this.
Oh yeah, if you're bored and you'd like to be depressed, just do the math. What you should be
making.
I
often get bored and want to be depressed. So yeah,
just do the math. Just do the math and see how much you should be making to afford a house within the old traditional, rules of thumb to how much mortgage should be out of your personal paycheck every single month. And you'll see that, it doesn't work out that way anymore. Houses are X income rather than they were when they were 2x, 3x a couple of decades ago.
Well, you look like you're prepared to.
No, it just feels like it happened kind of quickly too. Even just in the last 5 years, honestly. COVID was a big catalyst for this, obviously, with price increases. And so I don't know. It doesn't feel like a quick fix. I'm sitting here thinking I don't really want the price of my house to go down. I want interest rates to go down because I want to refinance my mortgage, but I don't know if I want. I guess we need to delineate. We don't want. And I don't think housing prices going down is a good thing. I think the rate at which they're increasing, again, is the thing that we need to slow down. So the actual percentage of inflation rather than the price decreases. I think that's what we're saying, right, Rabih? We don't want the 4.7%.
And real wages going up, right, to be able to afford the homes.
100%. Yeah. Like I'm not saying it's an overnight solution, but a solution that is sustainable is if houses do not grow at 4.7, grow at 2 or even less, 1.5, while our incomes are growing at 3.5. And that will take time until, the gap is filled.
Well, and to that point, Will, outside of an 08-09 situation, real estate tends to historically not drop. Like it just doesn't. Like it doesn't. It moves. We also, I guess to be fair, we've seen unprecedented growth in real estate prices over the last 5-10 years. But historically, you just don't see real estate have drastic drops for the most part. It kind of just chugs along with slow increases historically. So I don't see that happening. And then, Rabih, we talked about this on one of the recent shows of like every historical event having parents, right? Like we're currently living with like the children of the events past, right? And right now, I think with real estate, what we're dealing with, you mentioned it, one of the biggest things, like the mom and dad of our current real estate situation is 0809. And the fact that the biggest remnant we have left over of 0809 is that home builders are very, very sheepish of getting back to their ways prior to 0809. Like they got left holding the bag, and they're really sheepish even today, where they're like, they are so nervous, which is leading us to, I think, a continual shortage of homes, of single family homes in particular. I think apartments and condos are a completely different story, but single family homes, as long as supply stays low, which it continues to do, I don't see how, even with movement in rates, I don't see how home prices change much or come down at all. Maybe they slow down, but I don't see them coming down. I think it'd be pretty hard.
I agree. There's always, I don't really want to open this door on me, but there's always regulation in a sense. And, if you want to see an overnight change, it usually doesn't happen by incentivizing suppliers. And it only happens by incentivizing suppliers. And the best way to incentivize suppliers is by a different regulatory framework. Probably in the case of the housing market, deregulation to allow for more competition, more suppliers. This might put us, oh yeah, we're now in a new regime. 0809 doesn't affect much. But how much has there been a change in the regulatory framework since 0809?
We have a guy taking over in January who claims he ran on the word deregulation. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, cool. Will or Rabih, any other thoughts on the cherry, or do you just want some cake now?
I want cake.
Or always down for cake.
Okay, awesome. That was great, Rabih, as always. Number 2, do spending actions speak louder than words? This is a little bit of a continuation, Rabih, of, I don't know if it was our last show or the one before that, when we talked about the friend of the show who went viral with an inflation tweet, we'll call it. Basically, they put out a update of where inflation was, and it led to some angry comments. There was like over 1,000 comments on the post, like 80,000 views. Like it truly did go viral. And it's so interesting to me when you talk about how angry people get and how frustrated they are around inflation. A lot of people are crediting, speaking of the guy who just took office again or will be in January, a lot of people are crediting the topic of inflation as the reason why he took over, at least one of the big ones. People are so mad about it, and understandably so. I'm not claiming they shouldn't be, but what's interesting to me is actions are not changing. And look no further than current spending on the holidays, Christmas in particular. Black Friday, we hit another record. So depending on the numbers you look at, the number that I am seeing the most that's come out is on Black Friday in one single day. The shoppers spent $10.8 billion in America in one day. That was a 10.2% increase from 2023 and nearly double what was spent 7 years ago. It says shoppers also started early, spending $6.1 billion online on Thanksgiving. I brought this up before we went on, and there was some thoughts around this. I think, Will, you had some thoughts on Black Friday or just in this in general, but I'll throw it to you guys.
It's just nuts. People are just going hard. I think our society is just driven by consumerism because of social media, and that's neither here nor there. But I think people just want nice things. They want to continue to buy stuff. I have kind of a hot take on Black Friday, where it's like I didn't even buy anything on Black Friday because we were like away for Thanksgiving with our family and like kind of focusing on hanging out with the family. Put this ticking clock on you to like purchase, and you have until Cyber Monday, but then it's like you're scrambling to like recover from Thanksgiving. This is just maybe my shout out to all the big Fortune 500 companies who are listening to this episode. Can
All
you
of
guys
them,
do?
all the
Can you
fans
do
of the
your
show.
sale? Can you do your sales the week after Thanksgiving? Because that's when we all sit down. And we're like, all right, we're ready to shop now. Let's do this thing. I
Yeah.
may be alone in this, but that was my take. Is I usually never buy anything on Black Friday because I don't want to go wait in line in person, and the online is always chaos. And I'm always like, dude, am I going to get a better deal on Cyber Monday than I got on Black Friday? So anyways, those are my complaints.
The classic point that we've talked about where you don't want deflation. That is a microcosm of why you don't want deflation, Will. You just said it. You don't want to spend money on Black Friday because you're thinking prices might be lower on Monday, Cyber Monday. That is the definition of why deflation is not a good thing for spending. Rabih, what are your thoughts on Black Friday? You a big Black Friday guy?
I usually am, but this year I was out, and where I was, Amazon is not going to deliver on time, so I did not buy anything. But actually, as we were having this conversation before we started recording, it was like, why is it the day after Thanksgiving? So as we were talking, I went to ChatGPT and asked. So here's what ChatGPT said. I was like, what I asked was, why is Black Friday just after Thanksgiving? Is there a marketing purpose? And ChatGPT came with me with historical context and said, Thanksgiving as a marker. In the United States, Thanksgiving has traditionally been viewed as the start of the holiday season. It's a natural pivot from giving thanks to preparing for gift-giving season. And the day after Thanksgiving tradition, it said in the mid-20th century, many employers began giving employees the day off after Thanksgiving, creating a 4-day weekend. This extra day off encouraged shopping. So it wasn't that, there's this. Actually, do you want to know what really went in my mind? It was like, people are less critical when they are like, have eaten a lot, they're overloading on carbs. This is why they decided
Maybe,
to do it
you're
on the
chilling on
Friday?
the couch.
This
But
is
now
what
it's
was
all.
going. This
That's
is what
my
was
thing is, shouldn't you be watching the game and hang out with your family, not like scouring your computer for like deals?
Yeah, probably. This is what was going on in my mind. It's like, are they like finding an opportunity because we're oral carbed up and we lowered our guard, we'll most probably buy more? It wasn't the case. It was the case that the day off already existed before
Okay.
that Black
And
Friday
maybe
came
that
out.
was before the days of e-commerce. It was like you had to go to the mall on the day off that you had after Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Rabih, I thought for sure you were going to say we go from giving thanks to buying crap. That's honestly, that's such a crazy juxtaposition for me of like what Thanksgiving represents to what Black Friday represents, and they are positioned. Yeah. And Will, you said it before we went on. What I find interesting, and like, I'm kind of like whatever on Black Friday. I've never cared about it. I've never once done it. It's never been a thing. I just don't care. I'm more into football and the food for Thanksgiving than going and spending crap. But the fact that they've moved it further, now it's like kind of like bled over into Thanksgiving.
That's the whole week.
And I think that's kind of annoying. Like that kind of bothers me. It's like, it's literally just Thanksgiving now. It's not even Black Friday. It's like the deals start like the evening of Thanksgiving. Yeah. Or like Wednesday, like before Thanksgiving. So that's what's crazy to me. But the whole point of this just being like, are we just like, is it just become like fodder? Like this inflation thing has just been fodder for like the Thanksgiving table of like, let's all gripe about inflation and then let's go spend billions of dollars on crap we don't need. Like that's kind of what it's come down to, right? Yeah. I mean, that's when I see this, I'm like, we're breaking records when we cannot stop talking about inflation.
We're all complaining about inflation, and
but we don't care.
Yeah, we'll just.
No one actually cares. Yeah. If you actually cared, we wouldn't be breaking records. So, Rabih, you're nodding. Any thoughts on this?
No, I agree. Actions speak louder than words. And whoever's complaining about inflation, let them pull up their credit card statement.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk.
Show me if it's changed any behavior, which is actually kind of interesting, right? Because it leads to this upward spiral of inflation. Like it is a self-fulfilling thing where you like these retailers and companies, they're just looking at your actions and they know you're going to keep spending. So they don't care. So they're going to keep jacking prices up, and you can go and rant and rave on social media. But if you're pulling your credit card out still, inflation is just going to keep going. So I just thought that was interesting. That's why we worded it like, I think the spending actions are speaking louder than the rants on social media or that post we referenced, Rabih, on the last show a couple weeks ago of like, it was crazy how angry people are about it. but I can almost guarantee, based on the numbers, almost every single person that was complaining about it was out on Black Fridays buying a new TV. So it's just kind of interesting to me. But any final words, Will? Anything you have on that? Okay, so we don't like Black Friday here on 2 cents is what we're saying. Number 3, are we living in a sitcom? Will?
I just feel like recent news, I mean, this whole year, it's felt like it kind of been, with the election and the two candidates, and just it kind of sometimes feels like an episode of Saturday Night Live or like a sitcom or something, right? And it's almost too good to be true, some of the content that comes out of our real life stories that you see. I don't mean to like make light of the situation with the United CEO that was killed, but like that seems like something that would be in like an episode of Scandal or,
That's
an
the
episode
first
of
thing you
House of
said,
Cards.
right? You
Yeah.
came in and you were like, are we living in an episode of Scandal?
Right.
Honestly.
It just seems like these crazy things that are happening that maybe they've always happened, but it just seems kind of more prevalent this year. And it's always like, oh man, it feels like we're in the Truman Show or something and something's going down.
Yeah.
Shout out Ryan Isaac's tattoo.
Yeah.
But with that being said, there was another story that happened this week that caught my attention. I was reading some news, and for any of people out there, I think it won the best TV show like last year, 2 years ago, but it's Succession. Have you guys watched Succession?
I've watched a few episodes, never like got totally lost in it, but yeah, I know. I mean, it's people rave about it.
It's a good one. Yeah, I mean, it's an intense watch. It's predicated on this really just multi-billionaire family that the dad is kind of the head of the family, obviously, and the head of the business. Then he has 4 children who are vying for succession, like the leg up in succession. And it's a TV show, but apparently this was brought to my attention by you, Matt. Apparently it's based on a real family who is recently in the news, and the real family is the Murdoch family. Rupert Murdoch is 93 years old, and he owns News Corp. And News Corp there are thousands of subsidiaries, but one of the main ones being Fox News. And that's kind of their like poster child is Fox News, and News Corp being, the entity that owns lots of other magazines and news corporations. So they have 4 children that are all, I guess in like the 90s, Rupert Murdoch created an irrevocable trust that assigned, money and ownership rights in the business to his 4 children. He has 6 children, but only 4 of them have voting rights in the business. The oldest son is Lachlan, and he is like his dad's protege. And then there's 3 other children that are, you could call them more, I guess you could say moderate, maybe more progressive in their political leanings. And Rupert and Lachlan are more conservative, right?
Lachlan, what a name. Lachlan. It's
kind of a cool name. I don't know.
It's kind of a cool name, I'm not going to lie.
So anyways, Rupert's now vying for Lachlan to like have control of the trust. Recently in court, he tried to like reorganize the irrevocable trust so that Lachlan had most of the voting shares, because I think he's seeing the writing on the wall that the other 3 kids are going to have controlling power when he passes. And that means bad news potentially for Fox News. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but it feels like an episode of Succession. And in fact, the article said that after they finished Succession, so these guys, like this family, watched the sitcom to the end. Spoiler alert, the dad dies and there's a big fallout of it. Apparently that was like another wake-up call for them to be like, let's get our affairs in order. So they're trying to like get it figured out. Meanwhile, Rupert's going behind their backs and it's getting blocked by a court to change the trust. And it's just, I guess
honestly sounds like an episode of Succession.
It's pretty awesome. So they're going to try again, and we'll see what happens. I guess why you should care about this and why we even bring this up in 2 cents is estate planning is something that we do as we talk about a lot as financial advisors, and succession is kind of a macro perspective on the realities of what could go wrong if you don't have a good estate plan in place, right? And how it can affect your family and your family's family and your heirs you haven't even met yet, those kind of things. And so we always say that estate planning is something you do for the people you love because you love them. And you don't want your passing to cause this vicious, wicked spiral catfight for, things that you have worked all your life to build. And then it turns into a big nightmare of a fight, either in court or between siblings that should just be loving each other and getting along. When money's brought into the picture, it gets ugly. So what are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, right? It does sound like truly an episode of Succession. It's crazy, but I love what you're saying, Will. We talk about this a lot around estate planning, and I kind of liken this to a dentist in a partnership where, or like getting into a partnership, like at a practice, let's say, right, where the legality needs to be involved, and oftentimes we hear, no, it's not a big deal. They're my friend, or it's my brother, or I've known them forever, so I don't need to get attorneys involved. And I always push back on that and say, listen, you are coming from the perspective of today where things seem great and you're all chummy and you're feeling great about the partnership. What happens when you hit a level of adversity or something you didn't count on or whatever? You're doing it because you care about that person and vice versa. It's the same thing with estate planning. People always feel so turned off around like, well, I don't want to get attorneys involved, or I don't want to get these legal documents because it like says something about my trust in them or whatever. It's like, no, again, to your point, Will, you love them. You definitely need to have something in place when you're of sound mind, when you can make these judgment calls now. And it takes a ton of pressure off whoever your executor is or your children. Like, it's going to take a ton of pressure off if you do it the right way, because all they're having to do at that point is just follow instructions and follow your best wishes. It seems like this with the Murdochs, he might be trying to pull a fast one because of some political leanings, but it's a great reminder for sure. Rabih, any thoughts from you?
Not much, but as you like, money and power is a tale as old as time, and family values existed back in the days where family members were, slaughtered just for money and power. So like, if we look at history, personal values do not stand a chance against family and power, and the only way you can actually control it is through the legal system. So yes, I guess the sentimental, intention of some people, but let's be realistic. There is one way to control it. And I don't know. I'm just saying, I do not trust my heirs who are not yet born.
Well,
Or go from there.
Well, Rabih, I'm really glad you brought that up, just because, again, one thing humans are really bad at is knowing how we're going to actually be in a situation. Like, we're not good at that. None of us are good at that. So you can play the hypothetical game all day long of like, oh no, like I've got 4 siblings, and if we inherited mom and dad's money, we'd be totally fine and friends, and it's all good. We don't know that. Like, you don't know that. No one knows how you're actually going to be when you're fighting over. It could be mom's cutlery and plates. You don't know until you're there, or it could be millions of dollars. So it's just better to do it now, Will, to your point. Like, it's a good reminder, maybe in 2025, New Year's resolution, get your estate plan done.
Yep.
So I don't know if anyone out there listening, I don't know if the Murdochs, they watch Succession. I don't know if they're listening.
They're probably tuned in. Yeah. Shout out Murdochs.
Shout out Rupert and Lachlan. What an amazing name. The other thing I was thinking about, Will, really quick, is have you heard we're going to teeter on the edge of being political, but you've heard all these stories that have come out since the last election that would just, if anyone ever heard, there was an election in November.
There was an election.
There was an election. Yeah. It was a pretty big deal. But all these stories that have come out of like family members not talking to each other, like literally it's like ruined holiday plans. They're like canceling dinners. They're like, I know of people firsthand, like friends of friends, who are literally like not talking to parents.
Crazy.
They're not talking to siblings. And when I was thinking about this, Will, this is like that times 1,000, because Rupert is actually going in and trying to pull like potential billions of dollars from his children because they believe something different from him. It's just kind of wild to me.
Yeah, it is crazy. The world needs more love. I mean, this was they got like a statement after this from the 3 kids who were left over that were trying to, like, I guess the court blocked it, so they have a leg up now. But they said in a statement, James, Elizabeth, and Prudence welcomed the ruling, expressing hope that it would allow the family to focus on strengthening and rebuilding relationships. So there you go. That's what's important.
I wonder if they're going to strengthen the relationships.
Yeah.
I wonder if they hung out on Thanksgiving or if they went shopping on Black Friday.
Yeah, I don't know. I bet they didn't shop.
Probably not.
I don't think they need 20% off something.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, awesome. Rabih, Will, any other final words for the people?
Let's see if a Santa rally's coming. What do we think, Rabih?
Yeah, we just got a Santa Claus rally.
Historically, you would be better off betting with it than against it. That's
Let's
about
go,
it.
Santa. Let's
There you
do it.
go. Okay, so get in the markets. Rabih just guaranteed returns by the end of the year. There it is. So, all right. As always, everyone, thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. If you want to talk to us, share your story, dentistadvisors.com, click the yellow book free consultation button. And we also are really starting to push our Dentist Money Summit coming out again, our second annual June, same place, Park City, Utah. If you want any information on that, whole new slate of speakers. It's going to be an amazing time. Go to dentistmoneysummit.com. Check it out. We'd love to have you there. As always, thanks for listening. Will, Rabih, thanks for being here. That was our 2 cents. Till next time, take care. Bye-bye.